So in this age of anonymous sources, especially pertaining to the NBA, there's a few things that have been playing out in front of us in real time. One, a reporter going viral for admitting she used to make fake sideline reports. And two, Sports Illustrated admitting that they use AI and fake authors for some of their articles. And then if you take a step back and look at the overall media landscape of how things are changing, Sports Illustrated since 2019 had a round of layoffs, and in 2023, media outlets like BuzzFeed are struggling, same thing for Complex Magazine, and the biggest of them all is Vice Media. A lot of these media outlets have relied on social media algorithms in order to exist, and they've been living off of inflated valuations. But in the journalism culture, they've always prided themselves with reporting with integrity, almost like a badge of honor. But in this present day landscape mixed in with tech, the lines are blurred as journalism and entertainment are beginning to blend into one another. And it's only a matter of time before the AI becomes the anonymous sources reporting that the NBA player doesn't want to be part of a team, etc., etc. It could be on behest of the owner or the player, who knows? But I'm gonna piece this together because there's multiple parts to this. First, we're gonna hear from Carissa Thompson as she admitted to making up fake sideline reports.
I've said this before, so I haven't been fired for saying it, but I'll say it again. I would make up the report sometimes because the coach wouldn't come out at halftime, or it was too late, and I was like, I didn't want to screw up the report, so I was like, I'm just gonna make this up because first of all, no coach is gonna get mad if I say, hey, we need to stop hurting ourselves. We need to be better on third down. We need to stop turning the ball
Pressure
over.
the quarterback.
Exactly. and do a better job of getting off the field. Like, they're not going to correct me on that.
Right.
So I'm like, it's fine. I'll just make up the report.
So that right there, where she didn't really say anything crazy, sparked outrage. A lot of journalists had to pretend that they were outraged in order to make their companies look good, or just sort of back up the integrity of the big institutions that they tend to work for, whether it be Fox, CNN, etc. But there was a lot of fake outrage for this, which was very interesting. But then, of course, the bombshell hit when another media outlet sort of dug into Sports Illustrated and some of their authors and pressed the issue of Sports Illustrated using fake AI, fake AI authors to write their articles, which all of a sudden, when this was brought up, all those authors disappeared and all those articles were nowhere to be found on their site. And ironically enough, I don't know if this is a formula, I should say, that a lot of companies use nowadays. Sports Illustrated had blamed a third-party company that they outsourced their articles and content to. Now, this is a formula I'm seeing a lot of companies starting to use in a way to kind of avoid any accountability. We've seen this play out in the Travis Scott Astroworld Festival fiasco, in which Live Nation kind of employed third-party security, third-party vendor workers, third-party organizers overall to set up the exits, to set up the whole venue, because basically this event took place in a parking lot. So they had to set it up to become like a venue. But this way, Live Nation, in a way, they kind of scapegoated any type of responsibility because a third-party company was hired to make sure that there were enough exits and everything was safe. From head of security of the concert all the way up into just an overall stage design. Everything was third party. And this formula is really mastered by McDonald's, as they loan out their brand name to mom and pop franchises for a fee, which is pretty much their main business. But SI was kind of operating under the same type of umbrella, where now they're escaping accountability, saying that they hired a third party content company called Advon Commerce to create their content, and they used AI without them knowing. But unfortunately for Sports Illustrated, it hurt their brand name equity so bad that they end up letting go of their CEO. They actually even admitted in articles that they terminated him. There's nothing wrong with these companies using AI, but the fact that they're hiding that they're using AI is the funny thing. Once again, the lines are getting blurred in between the pride and ethics, quote unquote, of the journalism culture versus the TV culture, which there is no pride and ethics. It's just about ratings. But again, a lot of this came into question because all these AI generated authors had bio pages of just hobbies and everything that they like to do. This was really orchestrated. Oh, this was completely fake. because there are quite a few media companies that use AI generated content, and they list it at the bottom of the articles. But tying this back to the NBA and just overall many sports leagues, including the NFL, they've always tried to manipulate the information, whether it be the owners or the players, to create narratives. But these anonymous sources, especially in the NBA, it's going to keep getting worse and worse. And one prime example of this, especially pertaining to the NBA, is free agency. Certain owners, when they want to manipulate a certain player's market, whether it be good or bad, now you could throw information out there with no accountability. And Mark Termini, and he was LeBron's agent, and he's the reason why Rich Paul is able to open up Clutch Sports. That whole umbrella is designed through a lot of his tactics. But he gave a lot of insight onto how, even before AI or just anonymous sources, how owners were always trying to manipulate NBA players into some sense of urgency to take certain contracts, or having them and their agent not fully understand their value. And we see this play out no further than NBA free agency, where there's just this imaginary deadline of having your deal done in early July once free agency hits. Some of the NBA players kind of feel like they're pressed and teams don't have enough money, and we've seen this narrative been pushed no further than guys like Woj. Woj, make no mistake about it, he works for the owners. A lot of the insight he gets is from the owners, and that comes with a price. A lot of narratives like, oh, he better get a deal done in July or else team's not going to have any more money. That's a narrative that the owners love to toss out there to have whoever's left over to take scarce deals. You guys can hear no further than from Mark Termini himself.
I know one of the things that happens today is almost all NBA business, probably 90% of NBA business gets done by July 3rd, maybe second or third in the off season. You have your words negotiated by talks about patience. You operate in patience. When LeBron came to Cleveland in 2014, as you're discussing, 8 or 9 days before that decision ended up getting made. I mean, that's something that isn't a part of today's operation in today's NBA that, definitely is a part of the way you negotiated for decades.
Correct. And I think that's an unappreciated and sorely unused strategy that's there for agents and players. But the mentality and the psychology of the business now is, the players want to see their name on your network scroll on July 1st or July 2nd. By July 3rd, they can't take it. And I've marveled at some of the players who actually go on, on the record and talk about how stressful it is for them to go through negotiations or free agency. And they admit that it's very stressful and they want to get their deals done quickly. And they'll come out before the negotiations start and say, I'm looking to, want to stay here. And I hope they get the deal done quickly. And of course, I want to send them a copy of my book along with the forthcoming books about negotiating and say, you're saying all the wrong things, son. Okay. And whoever's advising you should advise you appropriately, because if I'm the team and I know that you're nervous, why am I going to give you the best deal on July 1st when I can save a few here and a few there?
And who else pushes that narrative harder than Woj? Woj, once again, he is getting information because he's low-key helping out the owners. And this narrative has always been pushed by him every off-season.
And I think we've seen, to put it in perspective, and this gets a little technical, but in the $2 billion of contracts that I've personally done, I've done one non-guaranteed year. Now, the way the business has evolved, and that was a point of, if you took a non-guaranteed year, it was like the team was getting over on you. It's like, look, that's paper. I don't want an option year. I'm not taking it. Well, we won't cite specific examples, but let's just say there's no longer that sensitivity. And NBA contracts are being reported in the media now the way football contracts used to be, and football contracts are being reported the way NBA contracts should be and took 30 years to be recognized as fully guaranteed versus NFL contracts that are not.
And once again, who's pushing that narrative? It's Woj. Woj is the one that's reporting these contracts. Look at the way he reported Fred VanVleet's contract. Just for us to come find out months later, it's not even guaranteed. Once again, they're pushing narratives that mainly, from a financial standpoint, benefits the owners. The NFL today, they just started reporting on the full amount of the contracts, but then they say, oh, only such and such is guaranteed. But they used to report it how the NBA reports it today, where they only tell you the guaranteed number.
It's really an amazing analysis, but
this complete switch happened with powers that be, mainly with the help of guys like Woj.
From an agent standpoint, and I am a money guy, I don't apologize for it. I try to negotiate the most money for my clients. I want to make the most money for myself. My job, those non-guaranteed deals are paper. And tying again the thread to some of the comments I've made, NBA cares, but not that much. I know that a non-guaranteed contract, if the player's injured, and we've had some recently, you'll see how much paper that is. And you try to take that option year after you're injured or you're waived to the bank and say, yeah, but Brian Windhorst on ESPN reported it as X amount of dollars 3 years ago. Well, you know what response you'll get from the bank when you show them that headline. So I live that. And I said, I'm not gonna allow that. I'm gonna fight as hard as I can to protect my player. You know, whether you refer to as a sheepdog in the book. My players are big, strong, tough guys. My clients and the current players are all that way, or they wouldn't be at this level. But the sheepdog reference is not a literal one, it's a figurative one, because they still need to be protected from somebody telling them on a team, hey, you know, we'll just tack on 2 non-guaranteed years. And you can tell all your friends that look at the ESPN headline that you signed for 150 million when it's really only 40.
And those same headlines today are going to be AI generated by random articles. Who knows? It might be another big company like SI saying that, hey, such and such is looking for a deal, but this team just gave out a contract to someone else and it's only early July, but money's running out. This has been a narrative been pushed by Woj, and at some point the owner is not even going to need Woj anymore to push some of these narratives. They can go ahead and pay money for AI generated content.
Whatever. I wouldn't allow that. And some players don't understand that maybe there's more there that they can get. Some players get it, some don't. I always took pride that the player was going to get the contract to the max ability that I had. And if that took a little stress and strife or a little arm wrestling, then they would have to deal with it. But
ask yourself, when was the last time you heard a player arm wrestling with an owner during negotiations in NBA free agency? In the last, I would say, about 10 years. It's almost like the deals are done off rip. We all know they negotiate ahead of time, but you never hear of just a negotiation being stretched out by weeks. And once again, that's due to the help of the narrative being pushed by Woj that teams are spending money. Players better hurry up and get theirs while the money lasts.
I always explain to them, and if they weren't with it, then we probably weren't right for each other. And I could kind of gauge that early on. So not every player was for me. It wasn't a flavor for everybody, because I had a certain personality and tactic that I brought to the table. But the ones that stuck with it, I think, would say now they lived. And some, you know, and they look back and they'll laugh. That's the easiest money I ever made. I'm not getting paid till November or advance in July anyway. So why am I going to sign on July 1st when I can get X amount more?